It actually sounded like a huge rock hitting the ground.
The next thing I know, it's like a green firework just exploded in my face, and my entire body locks up. It's like an entire body cramp. I didn't know if I was shot. I didn't know what happened. I feel something just running over my head. I just feel something pouring over my head, almost like someone just was pouring water on my head.
And he just didn't look like him. He had the breathing tube in, he was covered in blood, and the trembling from the end of the seizure was the worst part.
Deputy Swanger, did you hear her?
So that is one of the biggest things I think people misconceive about comas and stuff is you do hear. That was by far the most terrifying and dramatic part of this for me. Is you're almost in like a dreamlike state. And so I would absolutely hear people's voices speaking to me, but it was almost like I was caged in my own head. And you're trying to perceive things what I assumed to be that night. Whether it was a dream, a hallucination, I don't know. But I pictured being in a concrete hallway surrounded by surgeons. And I remember I was pouring sweat in this and heaving as much as I could to breathe. And I remember just visualizing another guy on my shift telling me, you can live, you just have to keep breathing. You have to keep breathing. Like you can't stop breathing or you'll die. And, that was really traumatic. And as through the coma, absolutely, I heard people talking to me constantly. I wanted to respond. I wanted to say stuff, but it's like you're just trapped in a prison of your own head.
Deputy Swanger, you have answered a question for me that I've asked since 2016. I always have wondered whether my dad could hear me when I was talking to him right before he died, and I'm taking great comfort that you could actually hear Stefania. But you said that was the worst part. Why was it the worst part if you could hear her?
So the hard part was because you're so confused, and the last thing you have no perception of time in a coma. And I would hear some people be like, "What was telling me goodbye?" And not to get too far into the weeds on this, but I lost one of my partners and years back that was killed on a call. And I spoke to him when he was on a ventilator and stuff. And you hear these people, some of which it sounds like they're telling you goodbye, and you just want to scream back to them, like, I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. I'm not going to die. But you can't. And you hear these people and they're rubbing your shoulder and they're telling you it's okay. You just got to relax. And it's hard to explain to someone who's not been in that situation. But it's a horrific thing when the people you love and are surrounded by are telling you goodbye, and you want to respond so badly. But all you can do is hear their words of despair and how hurt they are, and you want to comfort them, but you can't. And that was a really terrifying moment for me. But the moments I did have that were really comforting with Stefania, as I could hear her, she would keep constantly saying, I'm here, honey. And so as alone as I was in my head and all these horrific, just traumatic hallucinations, nightmares, whatever you want to call them, it felt really nice to hear her say, I'm here.
Deputy, what can you remember of that night that changed your life forever?
So my partner and I, Kirchner, we were working patrol. I had OPL's TV crew with me that evening. And we hear a shots fired call come out that had a domestic situation to it. So we ended up canceling the other units going to that call because we were close. And we got to the call and we met with the complainants, and they seemed, they were just very startled and distressed. And then we went to the wood line where the alleged suspect was. When I started, announcing and seeing what was going on, we were met by very aggressive verbal responses. He said, I could tell something was wrong. He was very emotionally elevated, extremely just, through the roof with everything. Trying to talk to him, trying to get a better understanding. It was so dark that night. You can't really tell on TV because they were using night vision, but it was just pitch dark. And so we eventually go in the woods because if I recall correctly, there was a fence. And so we couldn't really see from that angle. So we go down a hill and into the woods. And once we get in the woods, he begins stating something about a 357 Magnum. So that's when I turned my light off because you don't want to paint yourself as a target when you're in the woods. And I thought I was behind the tree. I was obviously very mistaken. And I start hearing things landing around us. And when that happens, what unfolds next is I remember just being there trying, and I see a silhouette go in front of like a incandescent light. And the next thing I know, it's like a green firework just exploded in my face. It's the best way I can describe it. It just looked like a green starburst, met with the most overwhelming pain in the top of my head. And my entire body locks up and I black out for what felt like a split second. And I'm on the ground and my entire body I can't move it. No matter how hard I try, my body's in this lock. It's like an entire body cramp almost. And I remember thinking, I didn't know if I was shot. I didn't know what happened. And I remember thinking I was trying to get my rifle up because I was terrified if I hadn't been shot. Like, what if he was advancing? What if he was getting ready to finish the job? And I was panicking and just trying to raise my rifle just in case he was coming. A few moments later, my partner, Kirchner, walks over and he asked me if I can get up. And, I said no. And he takes my hand, and I remember gripping his hand as hard as I possibly could. And at this point, my body's beginning to like loosen up, and he begins dragging me out of the woods. And I remember feeling as I'm getting dragged out of the woods, I feel something just running over my head. I just feel, something pouring over my head, almost like someone just was pouring water on my head. And so as I'm being dragged out of the woods.
Hold on just a moment. With me, guys, is Deputy Dalton Swanger, Knox County Sheriff's Office, who is putting on a brave front tonight. But he is awaiting immediate and necessary life-saving surgery. I want you to hear what his friend and fellow deputy, Matt Kirchner, said.
Another rock came through and hit and struck Deputy Swanger, but I didn't realize it at first because I thought it was just a rock hitting the ground. And a few seconds later, I heard my partner, Deputy Swanger, groaning, and I turned around and I saw him laying on the ground.
Straight out to Deputy Dalton Swanger's partner, Deputy Matthew Kirchner, his former partner. Deputy Kirchner, thank you for being with us. When I saw that video from WATE, it was the Knox County Court video of you testifying at a preliminary hearing. My chest just seized up. My throat just felt like I swallowed a lump of coal. At first, I thought it was a rock hitting the ground. A few seconds later, I heard my partner groaning. I saw him lying on the ground. What happened from your perspective that night, Deputy Kirchner?
Originally when it first happened, I got hit with a rock myself, and I knew that he was throwing rocks. He hit me in the arm. But the next one I thought was just a rock coming through the woods, and I thought it hit the ground. But like I said before, I heard Dalton gasping for air. And so when I turned around, I saw him on the ground. I asked him if he could get up. I don't even remember if he responded or not. My initial thing was to get him out of there. I grabbed his hand and I took him out of the danger zone as fast as I could.